Oh, so
You said you stayed here?
yeah, this is it's an interesting spot because this is the Staten Island Ferry, right?
Yeah.
And like if you look around us, this place is open 24 hours a day. So if you're homeless in New York City, we got evicted from the park. We had some churches people were staying at, but then we lost those. So some people would come out here, and you could ride the ferry. You can catch a half an hour of sleep, and then just ride the ferry back.
So it's free?
Yeah. Since it's free, it's a warm place to stay in the winter. So it's not really, you can't like just sleep on the ferry continuously. They usually like kick you off. You can like catch a half an hour every now and then. And like I usually ride through the night because I was trying to vlog and get my notes updated since January 9th. So like I post over there, there's an outlet over here. I post up on the tables and just sit and ride through the night. It's just a warm place to sit. And then like there's McDonald's down the way, Starbucks. You could like, there's a 24-hour McDonald's that's really cool. They usually don't kick you out if you're chill. So you just like start to like learn the places you could sort of lurk at night, because we're living on the streets basically. The people who we were living in Zuccotti, and then they kicked us out. And we had to sort of figure stuff out for ourselves, especially after we had some churches, but then those fell through. Actually, I met a guy on the Staten Island Ferry at like 3 in the morning, and it was really cool. He wanted to be involved with Occupy, and we got into like a couple-hour discussion, just random stuff you like run into when you're on the streets, just talking with people. So it's cool. Actually, I like this place a lot. And like I was staying over there in Staten Island, so it's really neat. It's got good energy. When I lived in Puerto Rico, there was a ferry we would take from Fajardo, the mainland Puerto Rico, to the island I was living on, Vieques. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just funny, just like that. I come over here to New York and I'm still taking ferries and shit.
Yeah, it's I just took a glance over at the window. It's such the water is such an enchanting kind of thing. Like people get lost. I remember I studied to be I was training to be a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant for a little bit, and so we did training, in the raft, in case of a water landing emergency. And our teacher was like people get crazy in the water. Like people lose themselves in the water. Like they forget everything. Like if you tell them like do this, it's a training exercise. So basically you had things to do, and so throughout the years, people would just like you become a little kid like in the water. Like you forget like what you're doing. You do stupid things. Like it's interesting. Like the water, it's like an enchanting place. Like
yeah, it makes it. You're a different creature. What we'd say in Puerto Rico is that you're the slowest, most clumsy creature in the water. You have to remember that. You always have to be humble, because as soon as you go in the water, you're like the most clumsy animal in there.
You're out of your
element. Yeah, exactly. So you always have to be humble, because you never know when like that's going to be your day.
So,
and it happens, There just might be some angry shark one day comes by.
Or a hungry shark.
Yeah.
So you used to like do a lot of like thinking and writing here and blogging.
Yeah, exactly. Like right around here.
Do they have Wi-Fi like on your? Did you have you're just writing?
Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi at McDonald's across the street, but like I had so many notes. A lot of what I was doing was just like going through my notes and trying to like figure out what the heck is going on and put perspective to it. Because we live so much and we live so fast in the movement, so we don't slow down enough to think about what's going on. And that's what I would do, is go through my day's notes and like just figure out like, all right, what do I feel, and like what are the stories, and like what is the narrative here, like what are the bigger ideas? Because I think you can get caught up in a lot of action and a lot of need to be busy, and if you don't stop to think about the purpose behind what you're doing, then all we've done is we've given ourselves jobs that we're not being paid for, and we're just being busy. And we didn't come here to be busy. We came here to actually try to change the world. So that requires you to sort of stop sometimes and step back and think about what you're doing. I think that's what we need to do more of. That's why I hope like my book contributes to that type of discussion, that pause and that reflection. And that's what this movement's not good at so far, is self-reflection. And that's what, obviously, to be a better person, I think anyone, that's common wisdom, is you need to pause and reflect every now and then. So.
What reflections have you made? Anything that pops up on your mind?
What I've noticed is we don't talk about class much. We talk about like anti-oppression and racism and stuff. But we brought a lot of baggage into this movement, and we sort of purposefully are blind to it. So like when we're talking about why people can't communicate, we don't really look at like their different histories coming into this movement. That like a lot of street people, a lot of underprivileged people are coming in, and then other people who it's easier for them to organize full time because they're professional activists. They're currently being paid, or maybe they just have a family here in the city, and it's a little bit different for them to plug into Occupy Wall Street. And I think this type of discussion needs to be had in other occupies as well. People are just being frustrated. And that was a good thing about a park, is it brought us all together. It's sort of like it equalized that for a little bit, because we were all living in the park. And so we were all a part of like one sort of class. Even though you had like these divisions in the park even, we had a common unity, we had an identity. And that's when we broke that geographic location. We broke that bond that we had, that identity. And I guess our identity is our values, but we don't talk about our values enough for that to be a solidified identity. And that's, I think, what we have to organize around. Really, what do we believe? What's our set of values? And then really like hold on to those. And then acknowledge that we have a lot of personal reflection to go through if we're going to try to leave that baggage at the door of like the society that we're trying to change. Otherwise, what I see is we're just recreating a lot of the power structures that were in society. Like, see a lot of elitism in our organization. You see a lot of like cliques, a lot of like, some people know what's going on and other people are very sincere and passionate and they just can't figure out what's going on. I'm like, and I'm still thinking about it, and I'm still thinking about, it's like, the most mature thing I've heard about elitism is that it's like a weed. You can't get rid of it completely because you want to be like a permaculturist. You don't want to just use chemicals and eradicate all the bugs and weeds from your garden, but you want to manage them to a point that the good stuff could thrive. And so that's what you have to do in an organization. You can't get rid of elitism, but you want to manage it. You do that by having a open structure which people can access and that people can actually get involved in. And we talk about like our movement sort of structureless, leaderless, but there's a really good essay called The Tyranny of Structurelessness. Is that there's no such thing as structurelessness. So when you claim that your organization doesn't have structure, what you do is you just empower the powerful and the people who are good at working within bureaucracies. And that's sort of what we're doing. So we have to make our structure more overt and more accessible to everyone. And that would democratize Occupy Wall Street. And I have a feeling other cities are sort of going through the same thing. So, and it's because we don't have really we haven't come to a consensus on what a structure should be for Occupy. And so what is the Occupy movement, and how should you organize one? And a lot of people are looking towards New York for leadership. And that's it's a little funny because we have a lot of self-reflection to do over here too. So, I mean, hopefully, I'm hoping with this book is to start a discussion that then we go to the other occupies, we actually start talking about formal processes and structure and a good way to make it democratic and transparent and inclusive and manage this elitism that's cropping up. So. That was a good tangent, man.
Could you just repeat that last part one more time? About the elitism?
Yeah, I hope that the book starts a discussion about formal processes and structure, like I call it like a process standard, like an Occupy process standard, that can help manage the elitism that's cropping up I see in Occupy Wall Street, and I feel in other cities too. And like Joreen Friedman wrote this essay called...
Go ahead. One more time?
Joreen Friedman.
Start from the top?
There's this essay I read from 1970 called The Tyranny of Structurelessness. And it discusses how an organization has to have a structure. When you claim it's structureless, you actually empower the worst type of structure. And so you want an explicit structure, something that's open and transparent that people can plug into. I hope that a book like this that talks about Occupy Wall Street and our problems can help start that discussion, that we can have a formal process or just like an agreed upon practice for structures in the Occupy movement that are more transparent and accessible. Because right now the way they're organized in Occupy Wall Street, you could totally see that there's a little bit of elitism, there's people in the know, there's people who have access to resources, and then people who don't. People who are really sincere, who in the park, they came here to try to help change the world, but they don't seem to be plugged in. I noticed that from the very beginning in November, is that we need more communication and plugging people in. And if we don't address that early on, then this is just going to replicate power structures, where we're going to create a bureaucratic administrative class that is running the movement, and then we're going to create everyone else who's just coming out to protest, who don't really have a say in the organic structure. And then we're pretty much denying ourselves of the strength of what we were starting, which is an organic open source movement. And that's supposed to be the strength of this, is that it's open source. So let's go out here and we'll grab some of the actually, let's go back, dude.